gentlemen, I want to welcome you to an all-new edition of Boxing 411 with Fight Scribe Rodney Green. Guys, before we introduce our featured guest of the evening, we do have to remind everyone that this show is brought to you by FightSaga.com. Guys, for all latest boxing news, please go visit FightSaga.com on the daily. But guys, this would not be an episode of Boxing 411 without the counsel of the always insightful Mr. Rodney Green. Rodney, how the heck are you, brother?
Yes. Feeling very well. Man, so excited to be back. And we got a whole lot of boxing to discuss in a very short hour. So, man, let's not wait any longer. Let's get to it.
Very good, brother. I tell you what, I hope you had a great holiday, a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, Rodney, because we haven't conducted your show since before the holiday season. So we have a lot to discuss, a lot of news, a lot of events transpired, but the big one on January 2nd, boy, Ryan Garcia finally stepped up in competition, taking on former Olympic gold medalist Luke Campbell. Boy, and he passed in a very resounding manner, stopping the customarily durable Brit in 7 rounds with a devastating body shot. Oof, shot heard around the world. Body shot to Luke Campbell, putting him down for good, and Lawrence Cole, referee in charge, counting him out at about the minute 20 mark in round number 7. But it wasn't without taking some lumps. Rodney, before we actually start talking about the specifics of this fight, how would you grade his performance, sir?
No, I would give him a B-. Again, we have to give him credit where credit is due, that he did get knocked down, but he did get up, and he did stop Mr. Campbell in dramatic fashion. But if you're looking at it from a global perspective and looking at his career going forth, you definitely can see some holes in his arsenal, and he's going to have to tighten that up as he continues to go up to, different levels of competition, and especially if he chooses to go up to a different weight class. So all in all, I would give him like a B-. And as I said, I'm looking forward to seeing him in the ring again. I mean, I definitely want to see how he responds after this fight.
Yeah, and immediately following the fight, because we had our extensive fight breakdown with Coach Gogi. In case you missed that, guys, that's on our War Week Radio YouTube page. Guys, go check it out. Coach Gogi, because he meticulously broke down the fight, we're not going to go into the nuts and bolts of it. It's several days removed from the fight. So when you look at, though, his performance, immediately following his performance, and yeah, a lot of people were very surprised that he took some lumps in that fight, but immediately following the performance, he called out Gervonta Davis. And obviously Devin Haney was there. He gave props to Devin Haney for showing up at the event, and he was very respectful and said, yeah, man, I would love a fight with Devin Haney as well, but who do you guys want it? And he addressed the fans, the 6,000 in attendance at the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas, and they overwhelmingly started chanting, "We want Tank, we want Tank." There's an old saying, Rodney, be careful what you wish for, because you just may get it.
Yep.
And just looking at Twitter today, both fighters, and they're always busy on Twitter, both Ryan Garcia and Gervonta Davis, and this is what he stated on Twitter, right, regarding Gervonta Davis. He said, Ryan Garcia, quote, "I'm on a mission to knock out Gervonta Davis in 2 rounds. 2 rounds, Gervonta. If you do not take this fight with me, you will not be remembered. Your legacy will forever be tainted. The money's there. Everything's there. No excuses," end quote, on Twitter. And this was also reported on TMZ Sports. This is what Gervonta Davis had to say on his Twitter account. When have I ever been a bitch? You know who you talk to 10 minutes before your ring walk. The fight has already been made. Now shut up and get ready. End quote. Wow. Rodney, what are your thoughts on that? Because I'm a little surprised that both parties genuinely still want this fight.
You know what? I'm excited about it because you have two young fighters that has mainstream appeal, and I think it's going to bode very well for the sport of boxing. The only bad thing is that, again, we're still going to be in a pandemic-like setting and climate, so it won't be the event that it normally would be. But all in all, man, you have two guys that's fighting, seem to be on the same level. They have both a nice following and nice fan base, and I'm excited about it. I really am. I think it's going to have a great domino effect in so many ways because it's going to put the, unuses on so many other promoters to go ahead and place their young guns against one another. And just shout out to, Golden Boy, and Mayweather Promotions for, it really appears that the wheels are in motion, and this fight is about to be solidified. So I tip my hat to all parties involved, sir. I really do.
Absolutely. Now, going back to the Luke Campbell performance, when you think about Ryan Garcia pretty much guaranteeing a second-round knockout, and obviously styles make fights, Campbell's all about distance. Ryan Garcia uncharacteristically had to be the effective aggressor in that fight because he's a counterpuncher by trade, right? Obviously, he's not going to have to do that against Gervonta Davis, right? Gervonta being the shorter man, he's going to have to come forward, press the action. He's not going to be able to allow Ryan Garcia to dictate pace and control range from mid to long range. He'll lose the fight that way. So styles make fights, but when you look at, they're both southpaws, and when you look at some of the technical flaws that Ryan Garcia showed in that fight, do you really think this is a good idea at this time? I'll tell you, Oscar De La Hoya, his promoter, thinks so, but I'll tell you someone who doesn't and was very candid following Ryan Garcia's performance, and that's his mentor, Canelo Alvarez. He said, I thought he showed balls in the ring, and he'll be ready to fight the best in boxing very, very soon, but I'd like to see him have 2 more fights before taking on the best, end quote. Rodney, do you agree with Canelo Alvarez? Do you think it's too soon for Garcia, and do you think he's just still on an emotional high right now?
You know what? Sometimes, though, Joseph, you can be a young fighter, and we can say, you know what, I would like for him to wait and take a few fights and, but then, the way things are now, if I'm a promoter, I understand why Oscar and them are saying, you know what, we may need to pull the trigger right now because, who's to say if he fights someone else to where he gets knocked down, but he gets knocked out, he doesn't get up, okay? Then we really don't have no momentum for that marquee fight. I can also see Canelo Alvarez perspective as well, But ultimately, it seems like Ryan Garcia wants to fight. He wants to be his own boss. Golden Boy works for him, and that seems that the direction that they're going. But I also think, too, some young fighters, we like to think that they're going to always correct everything that needs to be corrected, that they're going to evolve or, grow into a super or better version of themselves. Well, that doesn't always happen. And I'm not saying that's going to be the case with Ryan Garcia, but you have a lot of X factors, and I see both sides of the equation. I can understand both. But ultimately, you know what? Ryan wants to fight, and like you always say, who's the real bosses of the sport? The fans. He didn't put it out there now. You didn't put it out there now. You can't go back. You can't go back. So it doesn't matter what, we would want to think. You didn't roll the check. Now your ass have to cash it. You didn't put it out there now. So all the normalities or the guidance and being advised, that's all out the window now. Now Gervonta has responded, said the fight's been made. There's no excuses. So we can't even deal with that hypothetical no more. Now they just got to go for it, Joseph. Plain and simple.
You know what, brother? That was very well stated. And for that, Rodney, you received the Warwick round of applause. That was very, very, right on the money, brother. And, yeah, it's too late for that after creating all this noise. Now, keep in mind, he didn't just call him out right after this fight. He's been doing this since 2019.
Yep.
Now, do you remember back then when Ryan Garcia had been saying, I want Tank Davis. I want to make that fight, and I think I can beat him. I think I can knock him out. And Floyd Mayweather in 2019 came on TMZ and said, what? Boy, you don't deserve a fight with Tank Davis yet, man. I tell you what, if you step up and beat my fighter, my prospect, Rolly Romero, I'll give you $200,000 on top of your purse. He threw down that gauntlet. Well, you don't hear that any longer. Apparently, Mayweather and Gervonta Davis were very pleased with the kind of turnout and the kind of noise that he's making, and they understand at this time this is the biggest money option for both Gervonta Davis as well as Ryan Garcia. So I think you're absolutely right, Rodney. The gauntlet has been thrown down. It's time to execute it. And once again, credit to both young fighters because they are both relatively young in their career. Ryan Garcia is 22 and Gervonta Davis is 24, correct?
Yep. Yeah.
So this is, and once again, we saw this past October with Teofimo Lopez calling out the pound-for-pound best fighter in boxing, Vasyl Lomachenko, demanding his promoter make that fight for him. Bob Arum, if you remember, did not want him to make that. He thought it was too soon. Well, Teofimo Lopez said, trust me, Bob, I'm going to win this fight, and I'm going to win it decisively. And I'm going to prove to you that I'm the best, one of the best fighters in Top Rank stable. And he sure did. Can Ryan Garcia do the same thing against Gervonta Davis? Now, going back to what you just saw, right, in October as well, it was on Halloween night at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas. You were there. You were there up close and center watching Gervonta Davis in action put forth the overwhelming knockout of the year against the customarily durable Leo Santa Cruz. Can Ryan Garcia, back up what he's professing, a second-round knockout?
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting because I know Luke Campbell doesn't have the same type of power that Tank Davis carries. And also, I wouldn't advise Ryan Garcia just to go in walk on a beeline and go straight toward him because he's going to catch something very heavy. I don't know if he has enough tool sets in his arsenal yet to where he can win by second-round knockout. He's just going to go blow through Tank Davis. I just don't see it because Tank is going to give him something to think about. He really is, though. I think he's going to really get his respect early. And it's going to be interesting to see really what type of dimensions does Ryan Garcia have in his attack. Can he fight going backwards? can he offer a variation of style of punches, of different styles, different rhythms, different combos, different combo knees? Because if he opens up like that with Tank Davis, like he opened up freely, man, that's good. I mean, it's going to get very interesting, Joseph. So it's a lot of, hypotheticals and possibilities, scenarios that can play out, but I definitely don't see him just storming through Tank, though. And if I'm Tank's team, I'm actually salivating. I'm salivating with the idea and the opportunity, because the punch that he was hit with Saturday, it was more of just a perfect shot. It really wasn't like a strong shot. He just caught him right on the kisser. Just a perfect punch. And if Tank lays that punch and he connects with it, man, it's going to be trouble. It really is. So, man, I'm excited, though. I am so excited just thinking about it. Can't wait. And, again, they done talk that talk. Now it's time for them to get ready to walk that walk.
Oh, my goodness. And I tell you what, I can't stand the DAZN commentary. And Chris Mannix, once again, focusing on the wrong things, right? Talking about, look how flat-footed Ryan Garcia is. Well, yeah, of course, he combines speed with power. That's why he's so explosive. He depends on being flat-footed. That's nothing new. What they didn't point out throughout the entire broadcast, though, and which is most alarming, and it's going to be a huge factor in this Gervonta Davis fight, is the way he was lining up. He was consistently right in the direct line of fire for the straight left hand and the right hook. He was consistently allowing Luke Campbell's front foot to be lined up on the outside of his front foot. So not only was he in the direct line of fire, but every time he would try to mount an offensive attack, he was allowing Luke Campbell that escape route and being able to pivot around him. If he hopes to have any kind of mild to good success against Gervonta Davis, that is what he has to work on in camp. If he doesn't, it may be a short night at the office for Ryan Garcia. And Rodney, you're absolutely right when you talk about, he seems to have a limited arsenal. Rodney, in your opinion, how many different punches did you count that he actually threw on that night?
Honestly,
I counted 3.
Really?
Jab,
3, yeah, I was
left hook,
2, yep.
Straight right hand. That's it.
Yep, that's it. I was going to say 2 or 3. And, again, the jab, I wish he would, to me, he does throw the jab and the left hook, but and the left hook comes off very explosive. But at the same time, it's an easy jab to counter over. It is an easy jab to counter over. And that's where he can be, exposed. And I think if Tank can get up close to him, make it somewhat of a fight where he can get in the inside and rough him up a little bit, hold a little bit, catch him with an uppercut, I think it's going to be a good night, Irene. And rumor has it, and I've heard this from reliable source, they've seen Tank, man, put down light heavyweights with his power in the Mayweather gym. His power is that formidable that he's put light heavyweights down. So, man, I think if I'm Reynoso and company, and Canelo's not no dummy. Canelo is really great IQ, so he sees what we see. He sees what we see on the elite level in everything. I think if I'm Reynoso and company, we need to get in the gym ASAP. We need to get a strategy. Me personally, I understand. I just think that, man, he loads. You're right. It's okay being flat-footed. It is, To me, he relies on it too much. I just think when you rely on your power so much, it becomes a crutch almost. And I'm concerned with the young man going forward, especially if he plans on going up in weight class, because as well as I know, he's not going to stay at 135 forever, Joseph. He's not going to stay at 135 forever.
No, not at all. And in fact, if you listen to Gervonta Davis recently, now, the one thing that I really respect about Gervonta leading up to this, right, he really showed almost like a renewed dedication to the sport in his preparation for Leo Santa Cruz. He claims it was the best camp that he's ever had since turning pro, and it showed in the ring. Well, right now, there's already video of him working with Adrian Broner in the gym, working out, preparing for this. So, Gervonta Davis, I think we're going to see from this point forward, if he stays this dedicated, the best version of Davis. We're going to see the best version of Tank Davis. And if we see that same effort preparing for Ryan Garcia, it could be a very, very, miscalculated effort on the part of Golden Boy Promotions and Ryan Garcia. But, hey, credit to the kid. He wants the fight. And, I'll say this. I feel really, really bad for Devin Haney, right? He goes to the fight. It's almost like he's turning into Rodney. And I want to get your thoughts on this because, once again, he shows up to the fight. He's the current WBC champion at 135 pounds. He shows up to the fight. The Ryan Garcia versus Luke Campbell fight was supposed to be a WBC title eliminator held for the interim WBC championship. That's his mandatory. That should be a no-brainer. That's the next fight. But like you stated earlier in the show, the fans are the real bosses of boxing. When the demand is such where they pretty much have a mandate now on seeing Garcia versus Tank Davis, do the belts really mean anything? If they try to order a mandatory challenge between Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia, does it mean a damn thing to the fans at this point?
Not at all. And I think, I even think Devin Haney understands it to a degree. And I don't think he's going to, again, I think he would love to fight. But I think also the fact that those two are fighting will give him encouragement going forth to say, you know what, okay, I'm next in line, or they can't continue to avoid me. I do feel bad for him, but at the same time, the fans are really the bosses. Gervonta's come off a nice showing at the Alamo Dome where attendance, I think, was 9,000. You throw in the mix a young Ryan Garcia who has a lot of, young fans. I think that it's just a no-brainer, and I think it's just going to be overwhelmingly just good for the sport. So, Devin Haney, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep winning, and at some point, they're going to have to fight you. You might have to wait a little bit, but I think your time is going to come. But, man, I am thrilled that this fight is about to take place. I just hope it's just not railroaded or anything comes in between it because, man, I think this has the potential to really be a fight that will make mainstream news, that will do trending, and really I think it's going to do some nice pay-per-view numbers. I really believe that. And like I said, we'll just see how all the dots and, I's and T's get crossed and, go from there. But, ultimately, man, I am thrilled that the fans are getting the fight that they want. And if this trend can continue, maybe we can get some of the other fights that the fans really want.
Yeah, obviously. And I really feel for Eddie Hearn because he's running into the same problem with Devin Haney that he's experienced with Demetrius Andrade, where he really wants to put together Golovkin versus Haney. Golovkin versus Andrade at 160 pounds. It's a great unification fight. But from what I've been told, DAZN would rather have a bigger money fight and a more mainstream appealing fight between Gennady Golovkin and Jaime Munguia instead. Eddie Hearn's like, if the network doesn't want it and they would prefer seeing that, well then, yeah, that's what they want. And it's the same here. DAZN, you know they would much rather have Ryan Garcia versus Gervonta Davis rather than King Rai versus Devin Haney. Can we safely say, Rodney, that Devin Haney is turning into the Boo-Boo Andrade of 135 pounds?
Oh, yeah. It's you can see it. I mean, it's there. You know, I mean, you're starting to see all the traces and all the, you know, effects of that. But as I said, you know, Andrade and Haney, you know, they're not in the best situation. You just would hope to let them know that I think if they do get a, you know, especially if Andrade, if he fights Munguia, the winner out of Munguia and Golovkin, I think at this point, man, he'll watch either one of them pretty quickly, and maybe that'll, you know, ascend him into a different level to get him some buzz. So as I said, I don't want to totally, you know, just bury the both of them yet. Eddie Hearn's a smart guy, but at the same time, man, you know, with the pandemic, sometimes you have to make decisions that you normally wouldn't make. And, I mean, we can't minimize that, you know, because, as I said, you have these guys who are, you know, ticket sellers. And, again, you know, you have your guys who have the potential, but they're not quite ticket sellers. Well, you know, in this climate, you have to be very careful how you spend your dollars, how you spend your resources, where you put your energy at. And as I said, everyone needs to understand, and hopefully, you know, and I'm sure that Andrade and Haney will continue just to, you know, wait their turn. I'm sure Eddie's having talks with them, and he has a plan. And if I'm a betting man, you have Munguia and Triple G, then, you know, Andrade gets the winner out of that. And I think he watches either one of them fairly easy, and it's pretty much target practice, to be honest. And it'll give him a chance to audition, maybe to go to 168 and fight Canelo. So as I said, that's just me looking, you know, down the road or possibly of what may transpire. But nevertheless, though, you know, you feel bad for both of those, but I feel good about the possibility of, you know, King Ryan and Gervonta Davis. And I think Munguia and Golovkin is going to be a entertaining fight. You're going to really see some leather being, you know, passed back and forth, though. I don't think Golovkin is the Triple G is the boogeyman that he used to be. I really don't. I think he's a little bit shot-worn. I think Munguia is one-dimensional. He's going to take a lot of punches, and he's going to give some. And I think it'll be an entertaining fight, though. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Indeed, that's a barn burner, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the show, additionally, right? But when you look at, you bring up a really interesting point. You brought up the pandemic. During the pandemic, is it a smarter move for both promotional groups and both networks to stage Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia in the interim? Because obviously you leave a lot of money on the table if you stage Gervonta Davis versus Ryan Garcia right now, while things are still, well, relatively closed down outside of the state of Texas. And even in Texas, you have, well, safe distancing protocols, right? Where we saw even in the Alamodome against Canelo Alvarez, they were only able to fit just a little bit over 11,000 fans. And we saw in Errol Spence, even in the massive AT&T Stadium, home of the Cowboys, you saw Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia only able to fit 16,000 fans in there. Is it the smarter move to make Devin Haney versus Ryan Garcia in the interim, or do you think Golden Boy wants that before the Gervonta Davis fight? Your thoughts, Rodney?
You know, me, what I would do is I would just go straight to Gervonta Davis and King Ryan. If you have to work out something with Devin Haney, then maybe step aside. As I said, I think that Haney will get his opportunity. But if I'm Golden Boy and I'm Eddie Hearn, I strike while it's hot. I strike while the demand is there. Now, again, I don't know all the financials. I really don't. And I don't know at the end of the night how things look in this pandemic climate. I just believe with the way things are during the pandemic, if you have a chance to make a fight that the fans want and demanding and everybody's on board, I think you go ahead and do it, though, Joseph. I think you take the politics out of boxing and you do it for the health of the sport in this climate, okay? And I think you're going to get the respect. You're going to gain new fans. And hopefully, when you get ready to, come back around, across that bridge again with Devin Haney, you're in a better position than you previously were. So that's just me, as I said, I don't know what you do with Devin Haney in the interim or the meantime while you having Gervonta Davis and, King Ryan scrap it out. But, one thing I noticed about Eddie Hearn, even with the last Canelo fight, it's a reason why he let Andrade speak, I believe. It's a reason why he brought him down, to San Antonio to give him exposure and everything. So, man, it's a lot that goes into it as far as the cultivation. But as I said, right now, you strike while the iron is hot, in my opinion, Joseph. You go right to it. You really do.
I couldn't agree more, brother. I think you're absolutely right. The only thing I see, and once again, this is a formality, and both parties, if they really want the fight, which they seemingly do, it can be overcome. But the only thing I see really standing in the way is where is it going to be held, one. But the most important obstacle that they have to overcome, what platform are they going to show this on? Gervonta Davis, throughout his entire career, has been showcased via Mayweather Promotions on Showtime Sports and now Showtime Pay-Per-View. DAZN is a streaming service. Obviously, Golden Boy Promotions has a contract with DAZN. How are they going to show this fight? How are they going to distribute this fight? That's the big obstacle they have to overcome, or is it? Now, I'm going to pose this to you, Rodney. I want to get your thoughts on this because from what I've been hearing, Chris de Blasio let it slip the other day that Steven Espinoza isn't happy with Floyd Mayweather. He's been showcasing, he's been taking all of Al Heyman and Floyd Mayweather's garbage on Showtime Championship Boxing and Showbox, right? In hopes that they would get the Floyd Mayweather-Logan Paul fight. Well, guess what? It's being shown on FanMio streaming pay-per-view on February 20th, 2021. So, is Floyd Mayweather, is he still loyal to Steven Espinoza and Showtime Sports at this point? Does he still have a contract with them? Or is Gervonta Davis free to fight wherever he wants? That's a very interesting variable that I don't think many people have really thought of. In your mind, do you think this fight is going to be broadcast on DAZN, and do they have the deep pockets to guarantee both fighters on the streaming app?
Well, according to Gervonta and King Ryan, the money is there. Now again, they're just the fighters. They don't know the inner workings and behind the scenes, and they're not putting up the money. But according to them, it's a no-brainer, and the money is there. You're going to have these type of issues going forth, though, Joseph. You're going to have, we can go back to long as we can remember, especially in the 90s when we loved boxing. You had some of the best fighters on HBO, then you had the other fighters on Showtime. You did have some difficulties, but at some point you were able to get a deal done, whether it was a Lennox Lewis or a Mike Tyson, or whatever. They crossed, they extended the olive branch and made it work. But as I said, you're gonna have issues right now just because the pandemic. And you're right. You have one, a streaming service, and then you have another one who is a pay-per-view. Well, that's where the promoters got to come together and say, you know what, either we make some money or we don't make no money. Or, based on the last few events, I know Mayweather Promotions hasn't really made a lot of money, okay? I don't think the Zone is just laughing all the way to the bank, again, with not able to, sell the house out with COVID restrictions. So those issues and impediments are going to be there. We can't be oblivious to that. But I think, and I'm optimistic, and that's why I really say that I think that Bob Arum did wonders with Teofimo Lopez and, Lomachenko, because, see, he set a standard to where, again, you had the very best fighting the best, and now you're going to have to – that's going to be the expectation for the other promoters. So they're going to have to figure it out because the fans already said what they want. Two fighters have already said what they want. They've also alluded to where, the fight's been made. The money is there. So, if this fight doesn't happen, I think it's going to give a black eye to the sport. And we don't want to wait. We don't want to see another two fights or this and that. We're ready to see Gervonta Davis and King Ryan. So we'll see what happens, man. We will see exactly what happens, how the financials work out, how the particulars work out, and then overall, where will we be in this climate in COVID in the next 4 to 5 months? That's going to be a telltale as well, sir.
Absolutely, very good. And I'll close this segment with recent comments from Ryan Garcia regarding this fight. If you guys doubt whether or not both fighters are serious, right, about making this fight a reality, because we've heard recently fighters talk like they actually want to fight, and that's all it ends up being. It's just a bunch of talk. But this is what Ryan Garcia has to say about facing Gervonta Davis and the reasoning behind it. Quote, everybody's scared. Everybody fears something about Gervonta Davis. And to me, it's going to be as easy as anything I've ever done. It's going to be as easy as singing my ABCs. I promise you that's the fight that's going to shock the world. I've been saying it from the beginning. I want to shock the world. That's who I'm coming after. Big bad Tank Davis. The man who hits so hard, the man that crushes people's faces in, that's the fight that I want to show everyone who I really am. After that, I want to fight Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney or anybody. I don't really care after that. Nobody matters as much as that fight with Tank Davis. That is the fight as far as I'm concerned. I'm looking at the bigger picture. Once I win that, you know what position I'm going to be in? That's the chess move to make. But it's a gamble. Like everyone says, the man hits hard. We'll see when we meet in the ring, end quote. I tell you what, Rodney, it really makes you optimistic for the future of boxing. Because honestly, up to this point, and especially from what we've heard lately from Errol Spence, Terrence Crawford, and Sean Porter, honestly, I am sick to death of hearing about purse splits. I'm sick to death. I mean, this tells you when both fighters genuinely want the fight, do you hear any mention of any kind of purse split, A side, B side, whatever? Do you hear any of that nonsense from either one of these fighters?
Not at all.
Nope.
Not at all.
So that should tell you something, guys. When both fighters really want the fight, none of the other stuff matters. It can always be worked out, right? Let's take a look at another fight that looks like it's going to happen. Well, if this pandemic doesn't get worse, right? Two fighters who show the same, willingness to determine who's best at the heavyweight division. And that's Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua in 2021. And once again, sorry, Wilder fans, you guys are going to have to look forward to Deontay Wilder facing someone else. Sorry, the contract has expired, and neither network is anxious to stage another overpriced third fight. But when you look at this, now obviously I'm going to read you something from Eddie Hearn, right? And this is the latest development from Eddie Hearn in terms of status of Tyson Fury versus Anthony Joshua materializing, right? This is very, very promising, though. And like we reported several months ago, the fight has already been agreed to. They just have to iron out the very crucial details of where this fight is going to be held, right? That's the biggest thing. So this is what Eddie Hearn had to say in a recent interview with IFL TV. Quote, I think it's heating. I think it's going nicely. The mind games are starting. AJ is working tirelessly away in London, and Tyson Fury has gone to Miami to train, and I think AJ will be going somewhere to train soon as well because of the British lockdown. I think everything is great. There have been conversations every day for the last 2 weeks on that fight. A lot of traveling I've been doing lately has been looking at where the fight can be staged as well. As we have done for a long time, we have an agreement on that fight already. We have an agreement which was agreed to a long time ago. Nothing has changed. We're not looking to go back on that agreement. I don't think Tyson Fury's team is either. We're in the position now of drafting paperwork to try and move forward with that fight. So I think from a pandemic point of view, it's difficult because the world is changing every day. 1 minute something is opening, another minute something else is closing. But that fight is planned for the end of May or early June. I don't see anything getting in the way of it. And both fighters, according to the agreement, are planning to fight twice in 2021. End quote. That's the big thing, right? I know everyone wants this fight to be in the UK, but when you consider that they're going to be on lockdown until February, with the rising COVID numbers and the second strain of the virus, do you see that as a realistic possibility, Rodney?
You know what? Ideally, you would want it to be in front of, those type of fans. But as I said, man, with the COVID, I don't like to really just say anything is concrete. It's just so many different elements to it. It's so many different possibilities, and they all are kind of bad. So at the end of the day, I don't know where they're going to host it at. That's just going to be an issue that they're going to have to get somewhat sorted out, that's going to try to make the most financial sense, though. I would love for it to be across the pond. I think it would be great with all the fans. But you know what? We're not living in, in those times like we were 3 or 4 years ago where it would be great, to have that type of fight. So, that's an interesting question, though. Where will they place the bout at? Where? I mean, that is something that I'm very curious to find out. If that's the last hurdle, I'm still optimistic because it means they come together financially. It's just about, working through the virus and the whole terrain and the geography. So, man, I don't really want to say – I can't say anything in total confidence as where it would be just cut and clear and 100%.
Yeah, and let me ask you this question then. If it's staged anywhere else besides Great Britain, does Joshua versus Fury have the same impact? Does it somewhat lose its luster being the biggest British fight in the history of the sport, and it's held somewhere else? Does it lose some of that zing in your mind, Rodney?
Well, it's going to lose a little. As I said earlier, as I've been saying for weeks, man, we can't minimize the pandemic. We can't, but we can't sit here and just say, well, let's just wait till the pandemic is over. Well, when is that going to be? So, we're not in normal times, and everybody has to accept that. And I think the promoters see it now. It's no magic wand or no magic pill that says, oh, things are going to go back to being normal. So, of course, it loses a little bit of its luster. But I tell you what, I would rather still pay for that and tune in and lock in than seeing, Earl Spence and Danny Garcia or, Sean Porter, and Keith Thurman.
Yep.
And so again, man, we have to be mindful of the way things are now, and ultimately the promoters are going to take a loss. It's going to lose some steam, but at the end of the day, it still can bode well for the sport and keep the sport, buzzing and keep it, relatively healthy with that type of fight and type of event. I'm thinking, man, don't count out somewhere like an Arab country or overseas or Morocco. Somewhere where, you got some big spenders, though. We'll see. It's a lot that needs to play out, though. But, yes, I'm definitely still optimistic, though.
Yeah, and I think so is everyone involved. This is now one thing I want to ask you, Rodney. When you look at the willingness of both men, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, and you look at both promoters working together from different platforms, and then you look at Ryan Garcia, Gervonta Davis, both promoters on different platforms working together to give the fans the fights that they really want. Once again, appeasing the real bosses of boxing. How does it look now, in retrospect, when you see what just transpired this past weekend, and then you hear the latest update from Eddie Hearn? How is Spence versus Crawford looking right about now?
Yeah, definitely looking like just buffoonery. A lot of clownish, circus-like behavior, selfish behavior, and like I say, man, I think they're gonna have to reevaluate. They do, who they fight next, because if the fans get this fight, they're gonna expect, the best to fight the best, and not wait years and years down the line, and not worry about purse splits and all this other BS, though. So, man, that's why I say I can't, minimize just how impressed I am with King Ryan and Gervonta stepping up to the plate, though. All the politics, and we all get so wrapped up into the politics and understanding it. For one, we got some guys that's just ready to fight. And that, to me, that's just how I grew up on, in the 90s, Joseph, we didn't get involved with all the politics and the back office and stuff. We knew it was going to go down. It was just a matter of time. Don King and Bob Arum was just going to get it worked out. We couldn't wait. We knew the fight was coming. I think we just got to the point where we just have to just get so wrapped up and have to know the ins, the outs, the purse splits. That's cool, and that's, a part of boxing. Yes, it is. But it shouldn't trump the actual two combatants getting in the ring. That's what's most important. And I'm just glad that, Gervonta and King Ryan, they really see that, and they're spearheading, hopefully this new movement.
Absolutely. And another thing it shouldn't trump, right, it shouldn't supersede, is the fans' demand. Okay, fans need to stop being conditioned to defend some fighter that they prefer or they favor, and rationalize why their fights, these clamored fights, demanded fights, aren't taking place. Quit trying to rationalize, unless his opponent takes a 30% cut, this fight's not going to happen, and he's justified to do that because of what he's done in the past, and blah, blah, blah. It's noise. It's nothing but rubbish, and you guys are part of the problem. If you consistently regurgitate this nonsense, it's nonsense is what it is. And anyone in the business understands, just like we just saw with Garcia and Gervonta Davis, Joshua versus Fury, it's pretty clear to anyone who understands the business like Rodney does that they really don't want the fight. If you're regurgitating that rubbish, then you really don't want the fight. Once again, giving Errol Spence Jr. as well as Sean Porter the benefit of the doubt. A lot of it has to do with, they truly believed that they're overpaid, right? They truly believe that they're overpaid. They truly believe that they're in this position and they deserve the lion's share. They truly believe it. Because they've been overpaid leading up to this point. Showtime Sean Porter gets paid over $1 million to fight Seabass Formella on Fox, right? And now, because of that, he's shocked that Bob Arum offered him $1 million to face Sean Porter. So I'm going to read you these quotes. And once again, this was reported back on December 28th on Sean Porter's podcast on YouTube, right? But we've been off the air enjoying the holidays, and we haven't had a chance to discuss this with our friend Rodney Green. Rodney, do you mind talking about Sean Porter and him putting his foot down saying that he won't accept a measly lowball $1 million in this pandemic against Terrence Crawford?
Yeah.
Do you mind talking about that?
Ultimately, I would love to talk about it. And just real quick, he doesn't want that smoke. He doesn't want that smoke. He sees that, you're talking about this is what you want. We're ready to make it happen. In a climate pandemic, you can get a 7-figure payday when you've never been an A-side fighter. Okay, you've never been you're a crowd pleasing you have a crowd pleasing style, but there's never been a demand for your type of services, I should say, to where the fans really demanding to see you in the ring. So you get a 7-figure fight, and at this stage of your career, and you're gonna balk at that when you
and another championship opportunity on top of it.
Man, come on, man. Again, man, it's sickening. It's disheartening, but man, just what I expected, man. I'm at the point. This is what I expect now. Again, it's not this is not the boxing that we grew up accustomed to, man, in the 90s. As I said, the fighters have been conditioned this way. A lot of the fans, and again, it's a reoccurring theme, and it really is relevant with so many PBC fighters. So I'm done with it, man. I'm not supporting or buying any more of these guys' fights on pay-per-view, these events. Man, I'm going to let them just, figure it out. You want to be selfish like that, then again, I'm going to start being very particular where I spend my dollars going forth. Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's very perplexing what happened to Heyman, because he's the one who initially wanted to lead the forge, right, in putting boxing back on mainstream TV, where the fans didn't have to foot the bill for any of these events. Now, it seems that he's trying to, pay for all of his fighters' inflated purses by nickel and diming every single fight fan. Let me tell you something, Rodney, and this is what really pisses me off. Heyman, it almost seems like he's not trying to sell these big events to be broadcast on free Fox, like Bob Arum is doing with ESPN, or free NBC, or free CBS. And you mean to tell me that these networks aren't willing to spend $15 million on a single night to see Crawford versus Spence or Crawford versus Porter or anything else? Let me give you something that puts everything in perspective, Rodney. These are some figures, right? Because we like to deal with stats and figures on this show. Do you realize how much Fox is paying out every single year to show the NFL every Sunday as well as the playoffs? Do you know how much they're paying in licensing fees? $1.1 billion per year.
Wow.
So they have no problem paying for their sports entertainment. You mean to tell me they're not willing to pay for one night of action up to $10 million? 6, 12, 15, depending on the matchup and the talent?
Yeah.
I mean, think about this. And once again, this is not just Fox, dude. You know how much CBS pays to show the AFC on the NFL every single year? $1 billion.
Right.
Do you know how much NBC pays to show the Sunday night games only? $900 million. Just to have their pick and just to have their choice of game and to be able to show it every Sunday night. $900 million. So you mean to tell me Heyman can't sell Spence versus Crawford on Fox for $15 to $20 million?
Right.
He's not trying. He's happy getting his money on the back end, and he's happy having the consumer, the fans, foot the bill.
Yeah.
That's what really pisses me off about this, Rodney. And to be complete. Anyway, man, I'm sick to death of talking about it. But your final thoughts on this before we bid everyone a good evening.
Well, I just would like to, say, man, that, towards the end of 2020, we had a lot of great fights. 2021, it kicked off with Garcia. Man, that was just Luke Campbell. Man, that was just a spectacular fight. Hopefully we can keep the momentum going. Let's be optimistic during this pandemic that some of these great fights can be made. And let's focus more so what's inside the ring and less about the politics outside the ring. And I think that'll make for a great 2021. And thank you for listening in. Looking forward to hearing you, us talking to you guys next week. You have a good night, all right? Later.
Guys, he's Rodney Green. You can hear him every single week on Warweek Radio, Boxing 411, but that's going to just about do it. Guys, I want to thank everyone for tuning in. And in case you missed any part of this program, you can hear the replay on YouTube on the Warweek Radio Network channel on YouTube, guys. And when you see our video come up, be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. But that's going to just about do it. On behalf of Mr. Rodney Green, I'm Joseph Herron. You've been listening to Boxing 411 on Warweek Radio Network. Have a great evening, everybody.